This beast has molested, raped, choked, and I just feel like it's getting stronger.
This time on Unexplained Mysteries, the young and the haunted.
I feel like it's here.
The male voice was frightening. It was almost demonic sounding.
When I heard the voices, I just said, he's not taking my baby anywhere.
You'll hear the terrifying tales of ordinary people living with ghosts.
There were dead birds laying on the floor, and there was blood on the walls.
A little girl shares a room with an apparition.
Sometimes she'll play with my dolls and stuff.
A renovation reveals a gruesome discovery.
And then we went down and we started digging, and then we saw this hand.
A psychic uncovers a mystery.
Someone died in this basement.
We'll hear from the investigators.
Everything that we saw could be rationally explained.
This house is haunted, yes. Is it the spirit of a dead person? There's no way that I can tell that.
We can't point a meter at these ghosts and say that they're there.
And visit a haunted neighborhood.
I hear the noise, and I said to myself, it's a little girl. She's doing it. I looked out the window, and there's this little girl's face.
And a lot of people have come to my house, sat in my house, and left believing there's something in my house.
And in an exclusive case study, we'll bring you the horrifying story of the ghost molester.
He said in a real deep voice, he was like, make love to me.
I know without a doubt that it was trying to have sex with me.
I still feel there's a lot of evil in this house, and I don't think it's finished.
And we'll give you the final analysis in our UnEx report as we uncover the truth about haunted houses on Unexplained Mysteries, the young and the haunted. Most people think of their home as a safe place to be. Sometimes they're wrong.
When we first moved into the house, I got this strange feeling like we were never alone.
When Caroline Brown moved into this two-story house, it seemed like the perfect place to raise her children. What she didn't know was that the house had a tragic history. A husband and father of 5 shot his wife here, then took his own life, leaving behind 5 children.
I decided, okay, it happened, we'll just forget about it. Then when things started happening, I started really wondering, was it them? It had to have been them, a husband and a wife.
Caroline's daughter, Cassie, was the first to make contact. A strange woman tucked her into bed as a dark figure lurked in the shadows.
He just stood there like he was watching her tuck me in or something.
I decided to kind of check while they were asleep, check their beds to see. And it was tucked in between the mattresses. I don't do that.
At first, Caroline was skeptical, but over the next several months, a series of bizarre incidents took place. Lights turning on and off, disembodied voices, footsteps. Then one night, she was confronted by an apparition in her bedroom.
I woke up and I saw the silhouette of a man coming towards me. My first thought is intruder. So I'm scrambling, looking for that, keeping this sight, this person in sight, ready to fight, ready to do anything I needed to do. Got the light on, it was gone.
Caroline now believes that these ghosts are the husband and wife who died so tragically here.
I feel like the couple is somehow grounded here. I feel like maybe they missed their own kids.
I think that with a situation with a murder-suicide, you have obviously heavy emotion that's put into play here. Whether there are really ghosts there or not, we can't prove from the perspective of we can't point a meter at these ghosts and say that they're there.
A lot of the things that's happened here, you can't explain. Even though you get nervous, you just decide, hey, this is my house. I want to live here, and you deal with it.
Tony Adams lives in this home with her daughter Yolanda. It was an ordinary existence. until shortly after the birth of Yolanda's daughter, Alyssa.
She was about a year old, and she would start having conversations, like, mostly gibberish, you know, but she would say, like, a name.
I would say, Alyssa, who are you talking to? She'd say, Bobby. And I'd say, where is Bobby? And then she would point to him.
They asked her what was wrong. She said, I'm scared of the monster. And I said, what monster? And she won't talk about it.
Then, one night, Tony saw the apparition herself.
There was a white mass, almost like a cloud, that seemed to be taller than I was, and it seemed to go right through me. I was very scared at that point.
Soon, whatever was haunting the house became more aggressive.
The stove would turn on, the flames would go up really high. I went into the bathroom, and the trash can was on fire. I tried to leave the house, and I couldn't leave. It's like there was something pushing me back into the house.
Electronic voice phenomenon expert Al Rober believes he can capture the sound of a ghost on audio tape.
We're going to be addressing the gentleman who's been, for some reason, annoying his family. And what we want to know is, why are you doing this?
Rober plays the tape back and discovers something remarkable.
We hear him on the tape when I'm asking about someone moving out of the house. I hear him saying the baby is staying, as if he's demanding that. The baby is staying.
Are you upset that Amanda's leaving?
The male voice was frightening. It was almost demonic sounding.
When I heard the voices, I just said, he's not taking my baby anywhere, you know. I was scared. My reaction was to just keep her away from the house.
The only thing that worries me is that if my daughter tries to move and take the baby, that he's going to become violent. Because at one point he was moving the furniture, knocking things over, when we had mentioned about her moving out.
Psychic Jane Doherty visits the house. She senses that there was once a barn here, that it burned down with a man named Bobby inside.
There's definitely a fire motif that is going on. That is what my concern was. I think of all the cases I've worked on, this was the most frightening in many aspects, because you have the poltergeist aspect and you have some real danger going on, or the real possibility of danger because of the fire and the child.
As Yolanda is being interviewed, baby Alyssa is distracted by what she perceives as an entity in the room.
Where is he? Is he here?
Bobby's here.
Bobby's here?
Yeah.
Well, where does Bobby stay?
Bobby should stay the house.
He stays in the house?
Yeah.
The terror that Tony and her daughter are living through has been overwhelming, and they are willing to do anything to get rid of the spirit.
If there were one question I could ask the spirit, I would say, what would you like us to do? How can we help you? If there's some reason they can't go back, we'd like to help so that we can all live calmly again.
Coming up on Unexplained Mysteries, more ghostly encounters.
It was like a Pandora's box was open.
I hear the noise, and I said, it's a little girl. She's doing it.
A detective uncovers an unimaginable crime.
What happened in this house to those two children is an absolute nightmare.
A mother and 3 daughters are brutalized by an unseen force.
And it was saying, your family can pay its respects now because you're mine.
I know without a doubt that it was trying to have sex with me.
A psychic's foreboding challenge.
And if someone dug up that basement, that you'd find a full skeletal remains of a body.
And then we started digging, and then we got like halfway through, and then we saw this hand.
And we'll uncover more secrets with our UnEx report. Stay tuned for more on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries, the young and the haunted. When evil infests a house, some believe that it lives on forever. Glen Burnie, Maryland, along the Chesapeake Bay. Years ago, something happened in this quiet middle-class town. In this house, only two young brothers knew the horrifying secret.
What happened in this house to those two children is an absolute nightmare.
The boys were savagely molested, not by a stranger, but by someone they trusted.
They weren't safe because of the danger that lived within, and that danger lied in their own father.
The brothers also witnessed what they described as the ritualistic murder of an infant.
I don't think it's far-fetched to believe that a baby could be stabbed repeatedly, dismembered, and then decapitated, and then literally tossed into a creek. And of course, that's what we believe happened in this particular circumstance.
No body was ever found, but the father went to prison, and the house on Judy Road was sold. When Margaret Castagnera and her 3 daughters moved into the house, they had no idea of the horror that was waiting for them.
The first time something had happened to me, I was laying in my bed and I woke up for no reason. And I heard this breathing and I could feel it in my ear. It was like, he said in a real deep voice, he was like, "Make love to me." It was pinching my breast very hard and it just squeezed me on my behind. It was like I was being sexually assaulted by it. Like it was taking itself and entering into my body.
A hand came through, it started caressing my right breast, it was going over my nipple, and I remember that the fingers felt bony. I'm embarrassed because I was enjoying it. When it started to physically take me, what I thought was a pleasant experience turned to terror. The thing pushed me back on the bed, and when it did, I felt this extreme weight on me. It started screaming at me, very raspy, very deep voice, and it was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa," and it just kept doing it and doing it. And of course, at this point, I'm screaming.
I was laying in the bed next to her, and her body, it was like her heels were on the bed, and her head and shoulders were on the bed. But the rest of her body was arched up like a bridge.
I know without a doubt that it was trying to have sex with me, and it was trying to rape me, and I was just powerless. There was just nothing I could do.
This beast has molested, raped, choked, he's touched, he's punched, he's scratched, and I just feel like it's getting stronger.
Not even Deborah's youngest daughter was immune to the attacks.
First it scratched me on this side of my face, and it hurt bad. Then it scratched me on this side of my face, and it actually broke the skin down here, and it was bleeding. And I was just crying, hysterical, and it was saying, "Your family can pay its respects now because you're mine." And it was saying, "You can run, but you can't hide."
The women fled the house and haven't been back until now.
When we go into a home to investigate, we look at, first and foremost, the environmental factors that are contributing to the situation. We look at the physiological elements, and we look at the psychological elements of all those in the family.
Christopher Chacon arrives with his team of investigators to find out who or what was terrorizing these women. To make the women feel safer, surveillance cameras were placed around the house. The team set up their electronic equipment, monitoring everything from gravitational fields to surface radiation. The women huddled together in one bedroom and tried to sleep. Still terrified, they asked to keep the lights on.
Okay, let's lay down.
Good night.
Good night. Everyone say their prayers.
It's 2 o'clock. Alicia can't sleep and goes into the living room.
And this usually seems to be the time when it'll start building up, and you'll start hearing sounds in the house if anything's gonna happen, and by 3 is usually when it gets to the peak. If everybody's sleeping and the house is quiet, that's when it seems like it's the strongest. I feel like it's here, and I wish if it was, it would just show itself or do something.
Throughout the night, Chacon keeps a vigil at the monitors, searching for any abnormal activity. But the house remains silent.
Everything that we saw in the house on Judy Road and everything that's been told to us by the family members could be rationally explained in one way or another according to the laws of nature and physics.
I still feel as strongly as we did in the first interview that those things happen in reality. They actually did happen, and they happened the way that I explained them.
Although the investigation failed to prove anything, Margaret Castagnera and her 3 daughters are convinced the beast is still here, waiting for them to return.
I still feel there's a lot of evil in this house. I think that it's the devil personally, and I don't think it's finished.
Coming up, a woman moves into her dream house, only to discover she's not alone.
I was scared. I didn't know what it was. I mean, I knew what it was, but I just wanted to stop.
A neighborhood with a terrible secret.
I don't go down there very often. That's the one place that really kind of bothers me.
A psychic makes contact.
Something is with us right now. Something is right here.
A family under attack.
She had blood down her blouse. Blood was coming from her throat.
And every now and then I'll hear something screaming.
And finally, we've put together all the pieces in the UnEx report on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries, the young and the haunted. There are haunted houses around the world. But what happens when an entire neighborhood is haunted? Beacon, New York, located in the Hudson Valley. Unchanged for decades, it is a quiet slice of Americana. It attracts people looking to escape the fast pace of city life. People like Julie Cohen, who thought she had found the house of her dreams. Julie and her husband bought the house and started renovating.
The house was in dire need of some pretty hefty work. It had a wood-burning stove, the dining room floor had been cemented, the floors were painted red, and everything had to be done. So we did that, and we worked day and night, and the last step was sanding the floors before we could move our furniture in.
Julie's husband stained the floors and added a coat of urethane. The house was locked up to give it time to dry. But when the couple returned, they found a set of small, dusty footprints running through the house. At first, they thought someone had broken in. But when Julie examined the prints, she discovered something odd.
I brushed away the dust, the dirt from the floor, and it was tacky, but there was nothing there. There was no more imprint, no foot. It was gone. What I felt was very strange about the whole thing was whoever walked on the floor would have left an imprint in the floor because the floor was wet and tacky from the urethane, and there was nothing there. There was no imprint. There was nothing.
This was just the beginning. At night, strange sounds would wake Julie up. A child crying, doors opening and shutting, footsteps coming up the stairs. It continued until the renovation was complete. Then suddenly, it stopped until the birth of Julie's son.
I was breastfeeding, and I'd walk into his room, and the crib would be down. The rails, it was a brand new crib, and the crib rail side would be down. So I'd look and I'd lift it up, and I'd feed him, and I'd put him back to bed, and it'd be up. And in the morning, I'd go in, and the crib would be down.
The crib was checked. but there was nothing wrong with it.
And finally, I'm feeding him, my oldest, and I'm sitting in the rocking chair, and the closet door opens a little bit, and I hear the noise, and I said to myself, it's a little girl. She's doing it.
Julie didn't fear the curious spirit.
And I said, it's okay. I know you love the baby, and I know you want to be with the baby, but you can't put the crib side down anymore because the baby could get hurt. And you can sit with me while I feed the baby, and you don't have to be afraid, and we don't want you to go anywhere. It's okay. And the crib never opened again after that.
Julie fashioned a homemade talisman intended to calm the spirit in her home. She placed sage and votive candles in a St. Francis of Assisi bird feeder, along with some holy water. It seemed to attract whatever was haunting Julie's house.
I was laying on the couch, and I was looking at St. Francis and watching the light. You know, it was so pretty. And all of a sudden, as I looked up at it, it just started turning. It started moving in a circular motion. And I just watched it for a few minutes thinking, am I really seeing this? And then it stopped. And I looked again, and it went in the other direction.
But Julie's house wasn't the only one on the block experiencing strange phenomenon. The Knapps were also having a problem. Just across the street, daughter Amanda was the first to feel the presence of something unusual.
Friend slept over and she passed out. So I was just sitting there and I couldn't sleep. And the typewriter just started flipping out. All the buttons were going, but it wasn't plugged in and it wasn't turned on. And then there was shuffled papers underneath that were just flying around. And then I just tried going to sleep and it wouldn't go away and I started screaming and then it stopped.
Amanda feels the source of the haunting is in the basement. While she was helping her stepfather do some renovations, they made a shocking discovery.
And then we went down there and we started digging, and then we got halfway through it, and then we saw this hand. It was exactly like this, but it was all bones, no skin, just straight bones. But you could tell it was a hand. And then after that, he just stopped digging, and then that was it.
The kids have told me about it. I have to admit I didn't believe them at first, but he's never touched the basement again, and as you've seen, I still have a large hole in my basement. I don't go down there very often. That's the one place that really kind of bothers me.
Amanda's daughter also seems to bring out the supernatural forces within the house.
It was early in the morning, my daughter woke up, and then you could hear someone crying, it was an older person crying, not a baby crying. And then all I heard is, help me, help me. And I looked out the window, and there's this little girl's face. She had curly hair. Help me. And then I went upstairs and got my mom, and then I came back downstairs and she was gone.
Could this unexplained activity be a part of a larger haunting throughout the entire neighborhood?
I have heard about a lot of houses in the area that they say that things go on in their home.
Everybody at one time has felt something. And still are. But they just don't want to talk about it because they don't want people to think they're crazy.
Coming up on Unexplained Mysteries, the young and the haunted. The paranormal investigation into the Hudson Valley haunting.
The most common cause for a haunting is a sudden, violent death.
I can't think of anything that could cause that except for your classical imagery of a ghost.
A psychic shocking revelation.
Someone died in this basement.
A spirit makes contact.
Cold, it's very cold right here.
And later, a family becomes the target of an unseen force.
There were dead birds laying on the floor, and there was blood on the walls.
Sometimes she runs to the house and giggles.
It was like a Pandora's box was open.
And you'll get the ultimate conclusion about these haunted houses with our UnEx report on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries, the young and the haunted.
The most common cause for a haunting is a sudden, violent death. Certainly, if there's a body buried in the basement, it would be a significant reason for a haunting to take place in that environment.
Julie Cohen needs to know who or what invaded her home. She calls paranormal investigator Randy Liebeck. On his initial tour, he witnesses something he can't explain.
I was here with another investigator, and we were setting up some surveillance equipment in the dining room. I turned and looked, and I saw the incense burner spinning around in a circular arc. And I told my colleague who saw it, he thought I had pushed it, trying to fool him. And I told him, no, it wasn't me. We physically stopped it with our hands, stopped the movement, stood back, and it started spinning again.
After spending time in the house and interviewing Julie about her experiences here, Liebeck is convinced.
This house is haunted, yes. There are a variety of explanations and definitions of the word haunted. And the phenomena that's occurring here is real. The question is the causative factors. Is it the spirit of a dead person? There's no way that I can tell that.
To delve deeper into this mystery, a more in-depth investigation is planned. Surveillance cameras are placed throughout the Cohen and Knapp homes, in the areas with the most activity. Randy Liebeck supervises the investigation, armed with a magnetometer to pinpoint any supernatural phenomenon. Psychic Peter James arrives to attempt contact with the entities. Peter is immediately drawn to the room where the talisman had been seen swinging.
There's a cold spot here, and that to me would be an indicator, if you will, that this is like a vortex. Something is with us right now. Something is right here. Listen. There's a young. There's also, I think, a child here as well.
Peter next makes his way to the nursery, the same room where Julie had seen the spirit of the little girl.
This room, there is yet a separate energy, and I strongly feel that someone died in this room. There's a lot of sadness. I'm saddened by the way this person died in this room. I think the death that I'm feeling in this room was unexpected and young. I feel very young about this energy. There's like, I think about 3 or 4 people died in this house over the years.
With Peter and the investigative team upstairs, Julie bursts in, visibly shaken.
I can feel it.
He's right here right now. Hello?
He's near me.
Whoa, he's right here.
I can feel him.
Right here. Put your...
Tell him
right
it's
here.
okay, that I can leave.
Calm
I can
down.
feel
Yeah,
it.
calm down here.
Of my investigators detected an electrical tingling sensation in the air at this spot at about this elevation. And I detected a magnetic flux in this area.
The team next moved the investigation to the Knapp home. Peter goes immediately to the exact spot where Amanda claims to have unearthed a human hand.
Someone died in this basement. Someone died down here, and I think, again, I'm getting that kind of a mystery death syndrome.
There's something unusual in this basement. I'm reading a fluctuating magnetic field stronger than any of the other places we've come across yet.
Are they walking in the house?
Peter and the crew hear footsteps upstairs, even though the home was supposed to be empty. He calls Stephanie back inside to confirm that no one has entered the house.
We heard distinct sounds, right, gentlemen?
Yeah, there was no doubt about it.
No doubt. Like someone ran right across.
Heavy feet.
Heavy feet.
No, we were outside.
Okay.
Already, Peter senses that the basement is the epicenter of the haunting.
But I feel that someone died in your basement. A man died in the basement, a male.
Julie arrives again, drawn by the premonition that something is in the house.
What do you got?
We hear footsteps above us.
Get up, Randy.
Above us. Below us on the stairs heading to the basement.
Cold. It's very cold right here.
There's someone here right now. Hello, who's here? Identify yourself now.
He's at my knees.
Yeah, I just experienced a significant EM fluctuate underneath.
Relax, son.
No, I'm okay. I've had this in this house before.
When his investigation was complete, Peter James is left with only one conclusion.
I would wager to say that if someone did some kind of excavating, if you will, and dug up that basement, that you'd find a full skeletal remains of a body down there. And I think that's the nature of your haunting. That's what's causing the anomalous activity, the sounds, the cold spot.
We can't make anybody believe unless they're here to feel it. Because I gotta tell you, I've watched people on television and I've said, oh yeah, their house is haunted, Sure. But they've gotta be here.
Next on Unexplained Mysteries, a little girl who sees dead people.
Sometimes she like runs to the house and giggles, and sometimes she'll play with my dolls and stuff.
A father trying to understand.
It's like you had to start rethinking everything.
A mother with a terrifying secret.
The harder you run from your demons, the harder they run after you.
The expert who believes the answer lies within the human mind.
Subconscious energy builds up, and unbeknownst to the person, it just lets go.
And finally, we'll analyze the facts behind these unearthly encounters in our UnEx report on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries, the young and the haunted. In the heart of the Midwest, an ordinary family is being terrorized. Ron and Doretta Johnson live here with their daughter Ashley. Their nightmare began with a series of annoying incidents.
Everything that we fixed just about came undone, just about as fast as we could fix it.
When we put paint on the walls, it went on, it seemed to go on, and then it suddenly began to bubble, and it was almost like blisters developed on the wall, and then the paint ran off.
There were electrical problems.
Light bulbs exploded, appliances shorted out, there was electrical arcs on the wall from power surges.
A plague of insects invaded the home.
It was a battle. You carried fly swatter around with you half the time just so you could kill all that was flying around.
We would kill them off, and then more would come.
And one day, the couple returned to find something even more disturbing.
There were dead birds laying all over the floor, and there was blood on the walls, on the drapes, on the carpet, on the furniture.
And every now and then I'll like hear something like scream, and then I'll like ask my mom. She said she didn't hear anything.
I didn't believe in hauntings. I didn't believe in paranormal, actually. So how could you see what you don't know exists?
It's not like Casper, but sometimes you can see through them, and sometimes they look like a solid person.
As the Johnsons searched for a rational explanation, the incidents became more dangerous. A suspicious fire broke out that not even the fire department could explain.
They couldn't believe the intensity of the room, the heat, everything that had melted in the house.
The incident created stress with the household, and Doretta blamed her husband.
My mom, she believed me when I told her that my dad didn't start the fire when the ghost did.
When I first told him that I thought something was happening, he was not open to it at all. He accused me of being crazy.
We were having some really bad fights. It was like, well, if you love me, don't you believe me? I'm trying to tell you these things.
By accepting the supernatural possibilities, Doretta seems to have made things worse.
It was like a Pandora's box was opened, because the moment that I opened myself up and said, okay, it could be something paranormal, then it moved very quickly.
Soon, Doretta came face to face with one of the spirits from the attic.
The very first apparition that I experienced was a little girl standing at my bedroom door. I now know that that was the same little girl that visited my daughter in her room.
Sometimes she like runs to the house and giggles, and sometimes she'll play with my dolls and stuff.
You could hear people walking, noises you couldn't explain, objects moving, disappearing, coming back. I mean, it was almost a joke, but it wasn't funny anymore.
The activity escalated, growing more and more threatening, and Doretta seemed to be the target.
Well, I was just taking a shower, and suddenly it went black. I mean, just totally dark in there. And I looked up, and when I looked up, I could see light at the top where the ceiling should have been. And I was looking up through dirt and a hole, and I knew I was in a grave.
Ron discovered his wife stumbling out of the bathroom, terrified and in shock.
When she got out, she was looking at her ankle, and it looked like almost a cat scratch or a claw mark right down the side of her ankle on the outside, and it was bleeding. You know, and the first thing I thought, well, what was in the shower that she just rubbed her foot against? The only thing that was in the tub was a bar of soap, wash rag, and her towel. There was nothing in there.
Afraid for the safety of their daughter, Doretta desperately tried to find someone who could help her.
I've had demonologists involved, scientists, parapsychologists, psychologists. I've had so many churches involved, from Catholic to Pentecostal, Mormon, Baptist.
Doretta's search for an answer led to a dark secret from her past.
As a child, I went through an entire life of a lot of emotional abuse. Everything that had happened, I had buried it deep, and I wouldn't allow it to come up. I wouldn't deal with it. And it began to manifest itself and eventually came out.
Could the turmoil within Doretta have caused the haunting?
If a person is molested as a child and his feeling is suppressed, in their later life it'll come to the surface, and this subconscious energy builds up, and unbeknownst to the person, it just lets go.
Slowly, Doretta was able to face her demons to begin the healing process. And while the spirits are still here, they seem to be a little more restful.
You know, I always say, the harder you run from your demons, the harder they run after you. It's true. You're going to deal with it.
Next, the UnEx report. We'll examine all the evidence. Why are some houses haunted? Is it the uneasy spirits of the dead? Psychic energy trapped in this world? Or could it be the projection of a troubled psyche? We'll put it all together next with our UnEx report when Unexplained Mysteries returns. And now for the UnEx report. What do you do if the house you live in is haunted? Some try to confront the invader.
He had knocked the holy water across the floor, and as if to symbolize, I don't like this. Don't bring this here again.
Others try to reason with the spirits.
One question I could ask the spirit, I would say, what would you like us to do? How can we help you?
A few learn to live with the haunting.
Even though you get nervous, you just decide, hey, this is my house. I want to live here, and you deal with it.
And then there are forces within a house that seem to feed off the fear they inflict.
And the typewriter just started like flipping out. Like all the buttons were going, but it wasn't plugged in and it wasn't turned on.
It started screaming at me, very raspy, very deep voice, and it was like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
And I just felt like my whole body just lifted right off the bed and I fell down. It was very frightening.
One expert suggests communicating with the entities.
I say, have you tried talking with the ghost? Explain to it that this is your house. You're the boss here.
But sometimes accepting the idea can be overwhelming.
When I first told him that I thought something was happening, he accused me of being crazy.
Researchers look for a logical explanation.
We look at, first and foremost, the environmental factors that are contributing to the situation.
While others believe that traumatic events can infect a house.
I think that with a situation with a murder-suicide, you have obviously heavy emotion that's put into play here.
Sometimes a psychic can bring new insight into the cause of a haunting.
We have some real danger going on, the real possibility of danger because of the fire and the child.
But no matter what you believe, the most compelling evidence comes from those who have lived in these houses.
I heard her wake up screaming, and I came upstairs, and she was flipping out.
And I was looking up through dirt and a hole, and I knew I was in a grave.
We've examined the evidence, heard from the experts, and listened to the young and the haunted. But no one is entirely sure what causes the phenomenon or how to end the terror. That is why, for now, these hauntings must remain an unexplained mystery.
Sometimes you can see through them, and sometimes they look like a solid person.
It was very strange.
I can't quite describe it.
This is really messed up.
And then, bang!
I was being haunted.
I was so freaked out.
Oh dear.
Celebrity Ghost Stories, tonight at 10 on Bio. True story.